All right, so we've got a pretty hefty reading list this time.
Yeah.
We're doing a deep dive into the future of leadership,
hmm
and we've got excerpts from Essential Competencies for Tomorrow's CEOs and Managers.
Okay. Yeah.
And it looks like this book really covers a lot of ground,
It does.
from AI to empathy to
Yeah.
something called digital fluency.
It's really interesting how this book kind of brings together all these
Yeah.
seemingly separate topics and shows how they all kind of intersect to shape what leadership looks like in this constantly changing world.
Right, yeah. It's like it's not enough to be good at just one thing anymore.
Exactly.
You kind of have to have all these different
Yeah.
tools in your toolkit.
Absolutely.
So the book argues that in today's world,
Yeah.
adaptability is not just, a nice to have for
Yeah.
leaders. It's absolutely mission critical.
Absolutely mission critical. It really digs into the story of Andy Grove, who is the CEO of Intel,
Oh, yeah.
and how he navigated a really important turning point for that company.
Mhm.
They were, known for memory chips.
Right.
But Grove saw that the rise of microprocessors was coming, and he made a bold move to kind of shift Intel's entire focus.
Wow, that must have been a tough decision.
It wasn't an easy decision.
Yeah.
It took a lot of courage, a lot of vision, and a willingness to let go of the past.
Right.
What's fascinating is that Grove didn't just react to the changing landscape.
Yeah.
He actually actively sought out information to stay ahead of the curve.
So he was reading everything he could get his hands on, talking to people in the industry.
Absolutely. He even sought out information from competitors
Oh,
to try to understand where things were headed.
So how can we apply that kind of thinking to our own lives and work?
That's a great question.
Yeah, because it's so easy to get stuck in our routines
It is.
and just kind of do what we've always done.
Yeah, I think a good takeaway from that story is,
Mm-hmm.
are we staying informed about the changes that are happening in our industries
Okay.
or in our fields?
Yeah. Are we reading? Are we,
Are we actively seeking out diverse perspectives,
okay.
even ones that we might not agree with?
Right. Challenge our own assumptions.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Another topic that I thought was really interesting was the section on AI-enabled leadership.
Yes.
So the book kind of presents it as this really powerful tool,
Mm-hmm.
but it also acknowledges that there are some ethical considerations
Oh,
that we
totally.
need to be thinking about.
It's not just a plug-and-play solution, right? It offers incredible opportunities, but
Yeah.
we have to be mindful of those ethical challenges.
It's not a magic bullet.
Yeah.
There's that story about Amazon scrapping its AI hiring tool because it was biased against women.
Right. That's a perfect example of how things can go wrong
Right.
when AI systems aren't developed or used responsibly.
Yeah, and so the book emphasizes this idea of digital fluency.
Yes.
But what does that really mean? I mean,
Yeah, it's not just about knowing how to use technology.
Okay.
It's about understanding how it works, understanding its limitations
Mhm.
and its potential impact
on people and
on people, on society as a whole.
Okay, so it's about being able to see the big picture.
It is. It's about being able to use it strategically
Yeah.
to benefit not just yourself, but your
Yes.
company and the world.
Okay.
So a new kind of literacy.
A new kind of literacy for leaders.
For leaders, absolutely.
And this all connects back to emotional intelligence,
It does.
which the book says is becoming even more important
Huh.
in this technology-driven world,
Yeah.
which is kind of surprising.
You would think that it would make it less important.
Right. You think like, oh, well, if we have all these robots and algorithms, we don't need to worry
Right.
about, feelings and stuff. But
But actually, the opposite is true.
Yeah.
Because as technology automates more routine tasks, it's those uniquely human skills like empathy,
right.
communication,
Collaboration.
that become even more valuable.
Yeah.
They're what set us apart.
The book uses the example of Jacinda Ardern,
Oh, yes.
the Prime Minister of New Zealand,
Yeah.
and her response to the Christchurch mosque attacks
Mm-hmm.
and her ability to stay calm and compassionate in such a horrific situation.
A really difficult situation.
Yeah, really resonated with people.
Her leadership style really stood out during that time. It was
Definitely.
characterized by empathy and vulnerability,
Okay.
and it really resonated with people.
And it's not just about responding to tragedies. It's about building trust
It is.
and understanding within teams on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Creating a more human-centered workplace.
Right.
Even as technology becomes more prevalent.
I love that the book also talks about companies like Zappos, which is known for their incredible customer service.
Oh, yeah.
And they really empower their customer service reps to connect with customers.
They do.
Even spending like hours on the phone if needed to solve a problem or just listen to somebody.
Right. It's about really going above and beyond.
Yeah. So I guess the question for all of us is, how can we flex our empathy muscles?
That's a great question.
A little bit more both in our personal and professional lives?
Maybe it's about being more present during conversations.
Okay.
Really listening to understand the other person's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's simply asking, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And really meaning it.
Right, and really taking the time to listen to the answer.
Absolutely.
So the book also has a whole chapter dedicated to sustainability.
Yes.
Arguing that it's not just about being nice to the planet,
Right.
but it's about long-term profitability and resilience for businesses.
It's not just about corporate social responsibility anymore. It's about recognizing that environmental and social issues are deeply intertwined with business success.
And the book highlights Patagonia
Patagonia, yeah.
as a good example of
A
this.
great example.
Yeah, they made a really bold move a few years back, donating all of their Black Friday sales
Wow.
to environmental organizations.
That was a huge statement.
Yeah, and it seems kind of risky.
You would think so.
Yeah, but what's fascinating is that it actually boosted their sales and their brand loyalty.
Because it showed customers that they were walking the walk.
Yeah, they were really putting their money where their mouth is.
Exactly.
So it's like a win-win.
It is.
It's good for the planet, it resonates with customers, and in turn it's good for business.
Absolutely.
So it makes you think about the companies that you support
It does.
and whether their values align with yours.
Definitely something to consider.
Okay, so on a slightly different note, let's talk about the digital transformation that businesses are facing.
Okay.
And the book talks about this idea that CEOs and managers need to be digitally fluent.
Right.
But what does that really mean?
I mean,
It's more nuanced than
you
just,
all have smartphones, so we're all tech savvy, right?
than just having a smartphone.
Yeah. Right.
The book uses the example of Adobe and their shift from traditional software licensing to a cloud-based subscription model. It was a massive undertaking.
Yeah, I mean, but they had a really clear vision and a strategy for how this would benefit both the company and their customers.
So it's not just about understanding the technology. It's about
being able to see the big picture and make strategic decisions about
how to use it,
how to implement it,
right?
How to lead your company through these major technological shifts.
It makes me think, how comfortable am I with embracing new technologies?
That's a great question for all of us to ask.
Yeah, because it's so easy to kind of get stuck in our ways.
The old ways of doing things.
So speaking of technology, the book also dives into data-driven decision-making.
Yes.
And it's about moving beyond gut feelings.
Right.
And making choices based on hard data.
It shares the example of Walmart using predictive analytics during Hurricane Sandy to ensure that they were stocked with the emergency supplies that people would need.
That's an incredible example of using data for good.
It is.
To anticipate and meet those needs in a time of crisis.
Absolutely.
But data can also be used to drive innovation.
Right. Of course.
Like Amazon using data to anticipate customer needs and come up with things like predictive shipping.
Exactly. They're constantly analyzing data to understand customer behavior and market trends.
And that helps them stay ahead of the curve.
It does.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, are we relying too much on intuition when we're making decisions?
Good question.
Yeah. Could we be using data more effectively in our own lives and work?
It's something to think about as data becomes more readily available.
Yeah, and more accessible to all of us.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about adaptability, AI, digital fluency, and data. And one thing that really stands out in the book is this emphasis on lifelong learning.
Absolutely.
It's like no matter how much we know, there's always more to learn, especially in a world that's constantly changing.
Especially now.
Yeah.
The book points to Satya Nadella, who transformed Microsoft and attributes much of the company's success to the growth mindset and learning culture that he fostered.
So he really encouraged people to be constantly learning and growing and adapting.
Yeah, he understood that in order to stay ahead, you have to constantly evolve, learn and adapt.
And it's a good reminder for all of us that we should never stop being students.
Never stop learning.
No matter what stage of our careers we're in.
Exactly. And now access to information and learning has never been easier.
Right.
With all the online learning platforms.
So many resources.
There's so many resources.
So I'm curious, how are you investing in your own learning and development?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. Are you reading books? Are you taking online courses?
It's something that we should all be actively doing.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about a skill that can make or break a leader decision-making. And specifically, the book explores this balance between being decisive and managing risk.
Especially in today's world.
Yeah, in today's uncertain world.
Which is so full of uncertainty.
Yeah.
The book uses the example of Southwest Airlines as a company that embraces this balance really well. They empower employees at all levels to manage risks and make decisions on the front lines.
Wow. So it's not just about making decisions from the top down.
Exactly.
It's about trusting your team.
It's about fostering a culture where people feel empowered to take ownership and make decisions.
That's a really powerful idea.
It is.
And it makes me think about how I handle tough decisions under pressure.
Yeah.
Do I overthink it? Do I rush into things?
Yeah, do you have a process?
Yeah, do I have a framework?
Making those tough calls?
Finding that sweet spot between decisiveness and caution is definitely a skill that takes practice.
It does. It requires a lot of experience, good judgment, and the willingness to learn from both our successes and our mistakes.
Okay, one more thing before we move on.
Okay.
I want to touch on collaboration.
Yes.
Which is another crucial element of leadership.
Absolutely.
And the book emphasizes the power of networks and building strong relationships both within and outside of your organization.
In today's interconnected world, it's impossible to go it alone.
Right.
Our success is often tied to our ability to work effectively with others.
The book even mentions Bill Gates.
Oh, yeah.
And his strategic use of networking to build Microsoft.
He was a master networker.
Yeah.
He understood the importance of building relationships with industry leaders, with partners, with even competitors.
And it's not just about collecting business cards, right?
No, it's about building genuine connections. Based on mutual respect and shared interests.
So it's about fostering those connections and finding ways to support each other.
Absolutely.
So the question for all of us is, are we actively nurturing our professional networks? Are we attending industry events? Are we connecting with people online? Are we reaching out to mentors?
These are all great ways to build and strengthen your network.
Yeah, because a strong network can provide support, insights, and opportunities that we might not otherwise have access to.
It can open so many doors.
And you know, it's not just about what you can get from your network.
Right.
It's also about what you can give.
Absolutely. It's a two-way street.
Yeah, it's about being a valuable member of that community.
Exactly. Supporting others and sharing your own expertise and resources.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We have.
We've talked about the importance of adaptability, AI, digital fluency,
emotional intelligence,
sustainability, data-driven decision-making, lifelong learning, collaboration.
Wow.
And I think it's really clear that the future of leadership is all about embracing these essential competencies and constantly evolving to meet the challenges of a rapidly changing world.
It's an exciting time to be a leader.
It is.
But it's also a time that demands a new set of skills.
And a new way of thinking.
A new mindset.
So in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to continue exploring these ideas in more depth.
I'm looking forward to it.
And we're going to talk about some specific strategies that leaders can use to develop these competencies.
Sounds great.
So stay tuned.
We'll be right back. It really is. And, you know, all this talk about collaboration and networks, it makes me think about the ethical foundation that needs to be there, you know, for those relationships to really work.
You're hitting on a major theme in the book.
Yeah.
Ethics, integrity, transparency.
Absolutely.
The authors really drive home the point that ethical leadership is non-negotiable.
It's not just a nice to have, it's essential.
Right. It's the foundation of trust.
Yeah.
And that's essential for attracting talent.
Absolutely.
Building a strong brand reputation and achieving long-term success.
It all comes back to trust.
The book uses a classic example. Johnson & Johnson's response to the Tylenol crisis.
Oh, yeah, back in the 80s when someone had tampered with the Tylenol capsules and it led to several deaths.
It was a really scary situation.
It was a huge crisis.
Yeah.
And Johnson & Johnson, despite the massive financial hit, they immediately pulled all Tylenol products off the shelves.
So they prioritized public safety above all else.
Absolutely. They didn't try to downplay the situation. They didn't try to shift blame, they took responsibility, and they took action.
It was a bold move.
It was.
And in the long run, it actually strengthened their brand.
You did.
People saw that they were a company that could be trusted to do the right thing even when it was hard.
Even when it was really difficult.
Yeah.
And it cost them a lot of money.
So it's a powerful example of how short-term losses can lead to long-term gains.
Absolutely.
When ethics are at the forefront.
When ethics are the guiding principle.
Yeah. It makes you think about those tough calls.
It does.
That we face in our own lives. Those situations where there isn't an easy answer.
Right, where the right thing to do might not be the most obvious or the most convenient.
The book really emphasizes that ethical leadership needs to be modeled at all levels of an organization.
Yes.
It's not enough for just the CEO to be ethical.
Right.
Everybody needs to be on board.
It needs to be part of the culture.
Yeah. And empowered to make those right choices.
Absolutely. So it's a good question for all of us.
Okay.
What ethical dilemmas have you faced in your work? And how did you navigate them?
Yeah, what resources or guidelines were helpful?
It's always good to reflect on those experiences.
Okay, let's move on to resilience and grit.
Okay.
The book makes a really compelling case for why these qualities are so crucial for leaders today.
Absolutely, in a world full of constant change and disruption.
Yeah, it's like you've got to be able to roll with the punches.
You do.
And bounce back from setbacks.
It's interesting how the book talks about both psychological resilience, which is for individuals, and organizational resilience, which is for companies.
So both are important.
Both are essential for navigating the inevitable challenges that come our way.
We all face setbacks in our lives, right?
We do.
The book shares the story of Steve Jobs being ousted from Apple.
Oh, yeah.
Early to return years later and lead the company to even greater heights.
It's a reminder that failure isn't the end.
Right.
It can actually be a catalyst for growth and innovation.
He used that experience to fuel his creativity.
He did.
His determination. And he came back to Apple with a fresh perspective.
With a renewed sense of purpose.
Talk about turning a setback into an opportunity.
Absolutely a classic comeback story.
The book also talks about J.K. Rowling.
Oh, yeah.
And how she faced countless rejections.
So many rejections.
Before finding a publisher for Harry Potter.
It's amazing. Persistence in the face of so much rejection.
It's inspiring.
It is a reminder that we shouldn't give up on our dreams, even when the path forward seems uncertain.
It takes a certain amount of grit.
It does.
To keep going when things get tough.
That's what grit is all about.
So, thinking about your own journey, what setbacks have you faced?
Oh, wow.
In your career or life?
That's a big question.
Yeah, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah.
What lessons did you learn from those experiences?
We all have stories of resilience moments where we were tested and we came out stronger on the other side.
Yeah. It's amazing what we can learn from those tough times.
It is. They really shape us.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into essential competencies for tomorrow's CEOs and managers.
It's been quite a journey.
It has been a lot to cover.
Yeah, exploring all these different aspects of leadership.
What I find so compelling about this book is that it goes beyond just describing the future of leadership.
Right.
It actually gives you a framework to step into that future.
Okay. No matter where you are.
So it's not just for CEOs.
Not just for CEOs. It's for anybody who wants to develop their leadership skills and make a positive impact.
It's like a roadmap.
Yeah.
Not just for those at the top, but for anyone who wants to make a difference.
It's packed with real-world examples and actionable insights that you can apply in your own life.
So as we wrap up, I'm curious, what are your biggest takeaways?
For me, it's the interconnectedness of all these competencies.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just be, you know, a tech whiz or a master strategist.
Yeah, they got to have the whole package.
You need to be adaptable, empathetic, ethical, digitally fluent, embrace lifelong learning, and cultivate resilience.
It's a tall order.
It is a tall order.
But the book gives us a really compelling vision for what's possible.
It reminds us that leadership isn't about titles or positions.
Okay.
It's about how we show up and the impact we have on others. It's been a fascinating conversation.
It has.
I've learned so much.
Me too.
So until next time.
Yeah.
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep leading.